My mom secretly ordered a traditional wedding cake after I repeatedly said no, then broke down crying and claimed I was ruining everything. Our wedding is set for this October, and what should have been a simple dessert choice has spiraled into full-blown chaos thanks to my mom. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be that person posting about wedding drama, but here we are. As soon as my fiancé proposed last year, we jumped right into planning. We're both pretty chill, not the type to stress over flower placements or obsess over matching napkin colors. But one thing we did care about? Dessert. Neither of us has ever liked those traditional wedding cakes, super sweet, covered in fondant, outrageously expensive, and half the time, barely touched by guests. We've seen it over and over at weddings. The cake's a showpiece that just ends up sitting there, uneaten and wasted. We didn't want that for ours. Instead, we wanted dessert to be something we actually enjoy. After tossing around ideas, pies, donuts, all kinds of stuff, we landed on a dessert bar with cheesecakes. It's something both of us love, and we figured it would go over well with guests too. We found a small local bakery with glowing reviews and booked a tasting. Their cheesecakes were incredible, rich, creamy, not overly sweet. The kind of dessert you actually want seconds of. We were sold on the spot. We left that tasting pumped about the idea of offering different cheesecake flavors for everyone to pick from. When I told my mom about our plan, she seemed okay with it at first. But her voice had that strained "I'm pretending to be supportive" edge. Sure enough, a week later, she called me specifically to bring up the cake. She started off with, weddings come with certain expectations, people look forward to the cake cutting. I explained that we could still have a cake cutting moment, just with a cheesecake instead. But she wasn't having it. It's not the same, she insisted. You'll want those photos someday. You need a real cake, even a small one, just for tradition. So, after talking it over with my fiancé, we gave in. We agreed to add a small, simple traditional cake alongside the cheesecakes. Nothing extravagant, just something for the photo op, to keep the peace. We did the research, got quotes, and were ready to place a deposit when Mom pulled her next stunt. We were sitting around my parents' dining table going over options when she suddenly said, it's actually pretty tacky to have a cake just for yourselves and not offer any to your guests. She flipped her stance completely. She followed up with, people will think it's selfish. You'll need sheet cakes to match, so everyone gets a piece. At that point, my fiancé and I just locked eyes. No words needed, we were both thinking the same thing, this is getting absurd. First, she said we had to have a cake for the photo, now the compromise wasn't good enough either. It became crystal clear that what she really wanted all along was a full-on, traditional wedding cake. Period. I finally said, Mom, this is ridiculous. First it's about photos, now it's about guests thinking we're selfish. We're not going in circles over this anymore. We're sticking to our original plan, cheesecake only. My fiancé backed me up right away. We already compromised once, he said. The cheesecakes are what we want. They'll be delicious and look amazing in pictures. After that conversation, my mom gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. We scrapped the cake order completely and circled back to our original idea, a gorgeous tiered cheesecake for us to cut, with individual mini cheesecakes for our guests. The bakery said they could design a beautiful display that would photograph just as well as any traditional cake. Problem solved, or so we thought. For the next 6 months, my mom brought up the cake at every possible moment, during dinners, phone calls, even in random texts. One Tuesday, she sent me a photo from someone else's wedding, just saw the most stunning cake at the Jones reception. Thought of you. I just reply with something like, pretty, but we're sticking with cheesecake, then move the conversation along. My sister eventually picked up on the tension. At a family barbecue, she pulled me aside and asked, what's with Mom and this cake thing? She won't shut up about it. I filled her in, and she just rolled her eyes. Classic Mom. Remember my graduation party? She had to get that giant sheet cake even though I just wanted to do an ice cream sundae bar. She always needs it her way. Honestly, that made me feel a little better, like I wasn't alone in this. But it also confirmed something, my mom wasn't going to let this go. She'd fixated on the cake and wasn't backing down. 4 months before the wedding, we had a meeting with our venue coordinator to go over final details. I mentioned the cheesecake setup, and the coordinator loved it. She took notes about display options and table layout. My mom came along to that meeting and I noticed her lips tighten when the coordinator showed excitement about our cheesecake bar. On the ride home, she barely said a word. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted our choice. Nope. 3 months out, she switched tactics. During Sunday brunch, she casually tossed out, what about a groom's cake? For those who don't know, a groom's cake is usually a smaller cake themed around the groom's interests, like shaped like a football, or fishing gear, or whatever. I looked over at my fiancé, and he immediately shook his head. He's not interested, I told her. And her response? It's called a groom's cake, but it's not really about what he wants. I blinked at her. Absolutely not, I said. We're having cheesecake. End of story. Under the table, my fiancé gave my hand a little squeeze, like a quiet thank you for standing my ground. That's when my dad finally weighed in. He hadn't said much through all of this, but he looked at my mom and said, "Let it go. They've made their decision." She pouted through the rest of brunch, but I thought maybe, just maybe, Dad's comment would put a lid on it. I was wrong. Again. She brought up the cake at least 5 more times in the weeks that followed. At one point, my fiancé half-joked that we should just elope and skip the whole thing. But we'd already paid deposits on most of our vendors, and that ship had sailed. Then, 2 months before the wedding, she tried one more angle. She invited me to lunch, just the two of us. The first half hour was normal. We chatted about work, the honeymoon, small talk. Then she pulled out her phone. "I found a bakery that makes gorgeous groom's cakes," she said, sliding her phone across the table. "They can match any detail from your dress or invitations. And they also do traditional wedding cakes, if you change your mind. We could schedule a tasting next week." I pushed her phone back without even glancing at the pictures. "Mom, stop. We've talked about this so many times. There's no traditional cake. No groom's cake. We're doing cheesecake. This isn't open for discussion anymore." I was really starting to lose my patience. After being crystal clear about our dessert choice, my mom just kept pushing back. When I told her firmly that this was what we wanted, she looked at me like I'd just slapped her. Legitimately shocked that I wasn't caving. "I'm just trying to make your day special," she said with that wounded tone. "If you really want to make my day special," I told her, keeping my voice calm, "then respecting our choices would go a long way." She didn't bring up the cake again during that lunch, but the whole mood shifted. When we said goodbye, her hug felt stiff, like she was hugging a coworker, not her daughter. Driving home, I couldn't shake the guilt. Even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, I still felt like the world's worst daughter. That's the thing about moms like mine, they make you question your own boundaries. The weeks leading up to the wedding were hectic. 3 weeks out, I had my final appointment with the bakery to confirm everything. It was all set, a gorgeous 3-tiered cheesecake for us to cut, decked out with fresh berries and edible flowers, plus 150 mini cheesecakes in different flavors for the guests. The bakery owner was confident it would be both stunning and delicious. Then, just 2 weeks and 3 days before the big day, I got a text from my mom at Downtown Bakery finalizing details. So excited. Instant red flag. I hadn't involved her in any direct bakery communications. Our final meeting had already happened, so what details could she possibly be finalizing? I called my fiancé right away. "I think my mom's trying to pull something with the cake," I told him. "Call the bakery," he said. "Better to find out now than deal with a surprise on our wedding day." So the next morning, I picked up the phone and called the bakery. I ended up talking to one of the employees. At first, she sounded cheerful, but as the conversation went on, she started sounding more and more uncomfortable. Eventually, she admitted what I was already beginning to suspect. Apparently, my mom had come in, claiming she was helping coordinate final details for the wedding. And without telling us, she added a massive, multi-tiered groom's cake to the order. As the employee described it, my stomach sank. This wasn't some fun little cake shaped like my fiancé's favorite video game controller or football team logo. No, this was a full-on traditional wedding cake with different fillings for every tier, dressed up and passed off as a groom's cake. "We have it scheduled for delivery to your venue at 2 p.m. on your wedding day," she said. "It'll be displayed next to the cheesecake setup. Your mom requested they be shown together on the dessert table." I was floored. The employee apologized, explaining that they should have double-checked with me, but my mother had seemed so convincing, said she was authorized, even showed them copies of our past email threads. That last part chilled me. I have no idea how she got access to those emails. The possibility that she went into my account without permission, it creeps me out even now. So here I am, 2.5 weeks before the wedding, with the original cheesecake setup I've always wanted, and now a massive, unnecessary wedding cake I specifically said, multiple times, I didn't want. I'm torn. Do I confront her now and risk a huge blow-up before the wedding? Or wait until the day of and act surprised? My fiancé thinks I should call her out right away, and he's probably right. But there's a small part of me wondering if I'm making too big of a deal out of this. I mean, it's just a cake, right? Except it's not just about cake anymore. It's about her blatantly ignoring what we wanted. It's about going behind my back and manipulating things so that we'd have no choice but to go along with it. That's what hurts. My best friend said I should cancel the cake immediately and deal with the fallout afterward. But the thought of how awkward that would make the upcoming bridal shower, rehearsal dinner, and wedding weekend? I honestly wasn't sure I had the energy for that kind of confrontation so close to the big day. And then there's the guilt. Am I being a bridezilla for wanting to put my foot down over this? Would it be easier to just let her have this one win to keep the peace? But I knew deep down that letting this slide would only teach her one thing, that she can bulldoze my boundaries, and I'll just smile and accept it. Update. First off, I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. I was honestly overwhelmed by how much support and advice I received. Reading your comments really helped me feel more grounded in my own feelings. The wedding happened in October, and my husband and I just got back from our honeymoon yesterday. Thankfully, zero family drama on that trip. By the time I posted, we were way too close to the wedding date to make any big changes. Canceling the cake would have meant losing thousands in deposits and messing up contracts with vendors. So we moved ahead with everything as planned, despite the cake drama and a few other issues I won't even get into here. For those wondering, yes, my parents helped pay for the wedding. They covered about 60% of the total cost. My husband and I were fully prepared to fund it all ourselves, and we told them that, but they insisted on contributing. They're well off and have always been generous with money. That's part of what made this situation so maddening. From the beginning, they kept saying, "It's your day. Do whatever you want." My mom even told me, "I had my wedding. This one is yours." Apparently, yours didn't include dessert choices. After reading all the suggestions you left, I considered several approaches to handling the cake. *1. Call the bakery and redesign the cake into something my mom would hate. Someone even suggested a zombie theme. *2. Cancel the cake entirely and just eat the deposit. *3. Say nothing and act blindsided at the reception. *4. Confront her directly before the wedding. *5. Let the cake show up but serve it at the rehearsal dinner instead. *6. Relegate it to some obscure corner of the venue where no one would really notice. Option 1 got a lot of traction, and honestly, the idea of her face when she sees a grotesque zombie apocalypse cake instead of her dream-tiered vision? Hilarious. One person even joked about turning the cake into a cheesecake, which had me laughing out loud. But after sleeping on it and giving it real thought, I decided I didn't want to stoop to her level of pettiness. I wanted to look back on our wedding with pride in how I handled things, not bitterness about how I got sucked into unnecessary drama. So I chose option 4, direct confrontation. I invited my parents over for dinner the weekend after I found out what happened. The whole meal was tense. My mom kept talking about centerpieces and seating charts like nothing had happened. After dinner, I took a deep breath and said something like, "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you about something important." I told them I'd spoken to the bakery, that I knew about the surprise cake order, that I was hurt it had been done behind my back, after I'd been very clear about what we wanted. My mom immediately got defensive. "I just wanted to surprise you," she said. She looked at me with that familiar mix of confidence and deflection and said, "It's going to be beautiful, and you'll thank me when you see the pictures." But that wasn't the point. Not even close. I told her, "This isn't about how it'll look. It's about the fact that you went behind my back and did the one thing I asked you not to. Multiple times." "You're overreacting," she said, brushing it off like I was being dramatic. "It's just a cake. I don't get why you're this upset over something so small." My dad, clearly uncomfortable, jumped in to try and mediate. "Your mom meant well," he said. "She just wants the day to be perfect." "For who?" I asked. "Because for us, a perfect day includes people respecting our decisions." I reminded them calmly that this wasn't the first time she'd crossed a line during the wedding planning process. But it was by far the most obvious. I laid it out as clearly as I could. Going behind my back and ignoring our boundaries wasn't just inconsiderate to me, it was disrespectful to my fiancé too. That's when the conversation really fell apart. My mom started crying, saying I was accusing her of ruining my own wedding when all she ever wanted was to help. My dad kept trying to smooth things over without actually acknowledging the real issue, like we could all just move on without fixing anything. I ended the night by saying, "I love you both, but this behavior isn't okay. I need you to hear that." The next day, she sent me a barrage of long-winded texts, paragraph after paragraph apologizing for ruining the wedding over a cake, but still completely missing the actual problem. She never once acknowledged that the issue was her decision to override us and force her vision onto our wedding. I tried explaining it again multiple times, from different angles. "It's not about the cake," I said. "It's about you making choices that aren't yours to make, especially after we said no. How would you feel if I went behind your back and changed something important after you made it clear how you felt?" I told her this was about respect. That when someone says no, it should mean no. End of story. But it just didn't get through. Eventually, she offered a compromise. She'd have the groom's cake moved to the rehearsal dinner instead of the wedding reception. I agreed, even though part of me hated caving. At that point, with just a week left before the wedding, I couldn't afford to keep fighting. I had vendors to confirm, seating charts to finalize, and my own peace of mind to protect, so I let it go. My fiancé, to his credit, was supportive through it all. I could see he was just as frustrated, but he let me take the lead. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back," he told me. But honestly, I think you've been way more patient with her than most people would be. On the actual day of the wedding, I kept my distance from my mom as much as I could. Our wedding coordinator and bridal party ran interference, keeping her distracted with last-minute tasks. My maid of honor knew the full story and made it her mission to keep my mom from cornering me. And you know what? The ceremony was perfect. We wrote our own vows, and they brought tears to a lot of eyes, including my dad's, which surprised me. The reception was joyful and completely free of drama. The cheesecakes were a huge hit. Guests kept coming up to us to say how refreshing it was to have something different for dessert. And the big groom's cake? It showed up at the rehearsal dinner like we'd agreed. People were polite about it, but it was pretty much forgotten in all the pre-wedding excitement. My mom made sure to take a bunch of photos of us standing near the cake. I let her. At that point, keeping the peace was more important than winning a standoff. Our honeymoon in New Zealand was the escape we desperately needed, 2 whole weeks without wedding stress or family drama. We stayed unplugged the entire time and just soaked in every moment. Since we got back, things with my mom have been quieter. We still talk, but it's not like it used to be. Instead of chatting almost every day, I call her maybe once a week. I keep our conversations light and surface level. She's definitely noticed, but hasn't said anything about it. My dad did call once to check in. He asked if everything was okay between mom and me. I was honest. I told him I needed some space after everything that went down. He seemed to understand. Eventually, I know we'll have to sit down and talk through all of it. But right now, I'm focusing on enjoying being married and getting back into therapy. I worked through a lot of family stuff years ago, but after this whole wedding roller coaster, I think I need a refresher. The sad irony is this: if my mom had just respected our wishes from the beginning, our relationship would probably be in a much healthier place now. But her need to control everything pushed me away, exactly what she probably feared most. Weddings really do pull back the curtain on people's true selves. I never saw how controlling my mom could be until I got engaged. And if I had to do it all again, I'd elope. No hesitation. Update. It's now been a full year since our wedding, and I've had a few people reach out asking how things turned out. The timing's actually kind of perfect because I've been thinking about it a lot lately, especially while helping some newly engaged friends who are going through their own family headaches. To be blunt, having a traditional wedding with my family dynamic was a huge mistake. When I look back at what should have been one of the happiest days of my life, I don't immediately remember the vows or the dancing or the celebration. What stands out is the constant anxiety, always waiting for the next thing my mom would hijack. The cake drama was just the final straw in a long line of boundary violations. Here's something I didn't mention in my original post. 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes after my husband told my parents he planned to propose, my mom had already texted, called, or emailed practically everyone she knew with the news. Before he even had a chance to actually propose, I had relatives congratulating me. When I confronted her about stealing our moment, she just shrugged and said, "I was so excited, I couldn't help myself." The day after the proposal, she showed up unannounced at our apartment, arms full of wedding binders. 3 of them. She'd apparently been collecting ideas for years. Each binder was stuffed with magazine cutouts, Pinterest printouts, and handwritten notes on everything from venues to dress styles to color palettes. When I told her we needed some time to figure out what kind of wedding we wanted, she looked genuinely confused. "But I've already done all the research," she said. She said it like that settled everything, like her years of wedding dreams somehow trumped the actual couple getting married. Then came the engagement photos. When I finally shared them online, the first thing out of her mouth wasn't "you look so happy" or even a simple congratulations. No. Her first comment was, "You look really big in these pictures." Those photos, which should have been something I treasure, now sit in our album like a bruise I have to look at every time I turn the page. My husband always tells me I look beautiful in them, and I believe he means it, but I can't unhear her words. They're stuck on repeat in my head. Shopping for a wedding dress was no better. Every dress I picked, she shut down. Too plain. Not bridal enough. It doesn't have that wow factor. I ended up choosing the one I loved when she left to use the bathroom, just so I could claim something for myself without an argument. When I showed it to her later, she spent the next 20 minutes listing everything I could fix: add more beading, a longer train, maybe a different neckline. Not a single "you look stunning." Just critiques. At my bridal shower, a family friend told me I looked radiant. My mother, within earshot of half the guests, replied, "Yeah, well, she's gained a lot of weight lately." The entire room fell silent. I excused myself and locked myself in the bathroom. I couldn't breathe. My sister found me crouched on the floor, trying to calm down. She said, "She's just nervous. You know how she gets." But the thing is, I didn't. Not until this wedding. Every single decision, from flowers to seating arrangements to the playlist, came with pushback. If she didn't like something, she'd keep bringing it up over and over until we either gave in out of exhaustion or held our ground and dealt with the fallout. Even on our wedding day, she couldn't help herself. She tried to crash our private first look, even though we'd told her repeatedly it was just for me and my husband. We were standing in a quiet garden, mid-embrace, the photographer capturing this deeply emotional moment, when she suddenly appeared, camera in hand, striding right toward us. Our coordinator stopped her gently but firmly, reminding her it was a private moment, something we'd already discussed. She burst into tears and told anyone who would listen that I was shutting her out of special memories. Later that night, during the reception, my new mother-in-law overheard her telling a friend, "She's always been difficult. Wouldn't take any advice about anything." And she said this while eating the cake she ordered behind my back. At tables she insisted we rent, surrounded by centerpieces she strong-armed us into choosing. She even pulled my husband aside during our first dance and whispered, "Good luck dealing with her stubborn streak." He was so taken aback he stumbled a step. It's been a year now, and my relationship with my mother is strained, to put it mildly. We talk here and there, usually when my dad's on the call too. Family gatherings are civil, but tense. I keep conversations with her short and neutral. I share almost nothing about our lives. In the months right after the wedding, she acted like nothing had happened. When I didn't bounce back into our usual rhythm, she started asking around, wondering why I was still upset about that cake thing, as if that one event explained the whole fracture. She still doesn't get that the cake was only the tip of the iceberg. She never apologized, not really. The closest she came was saying, "I'm sorry you felt that way about the wedding." Which, let's be honest, is the kind of fake apology people give when they don't actually think they did anything wrong. My dad? Honestly, he's been just as disappointing. The man I always thought would have my back has spent the last year making excuses for her. That's just how she is. She meant well. She's old school. As if any of that explains or excuses what she did. Meanwhile, my husband has been my anchor. He never once pushed me to forgive for the sake of keeping peace. He's respected every boundary I've set, supported every decision I've made about how to move forward with my family. And still, I wish I'd listened to my gut from the start. I wish we had eloped. Just the two of us. Quiet, simple, private. Then maybe we could have thrown a laid-back celebration afterward, something we actually enjoyed without all the emotional landmines. Instead, we spent thousands on a wedding that now brings up a mix of joy, exhaustion, and heartache. So if you're reading this and you're newly engaged, please hear me, pay attention to the red flags. If family members start crossing boundaries early in the planning process, it's not going to magically get better. Set your limits. Enforce them. Or seriously consider skipping the whole traditional route altogether. Because if your engagement turns into their stage, if the focus shifts from your love to their expectations, it's not your wedding anymore. It's a performance. One you didn't sign up for. And if your gut is telling you to head to the courthouse or hop on a plane and say "I do" on a beach somewhere, listen to it. Save yourself the emotional toll. The one thing I don't regret? The cheesecakes. They were everything we hoped for. In fact, we ordered another one on our anniversary, a small version, just for us. And in that moment, eating a slice together at home in peace, I finally felt like I reclaimed something beautiful from all the mess. Just the two of us. No drama. Just sweetness.